As we start, viewers are highly encouraged to use their own judgment. The information below is only meant to be useful and fun. This is the exact evidence that was given in federal court during the Sean Diddy Combs hearing, as reported by Inner City Press. The judge just turned Kanye West's case on its head. What began as evidence of Diddy's claimed crimes quickly turned into something much more dangerous. The judge was shocked when Kanye said that Clive Davis planned Whitney Houston's death. The defense didn't know what to say, and no one in the crowd spoke. Kanye says that everything we thought we knew about Whitney's sad death was a lie, and that Clive Davis was behind it all. This video explains Kanye's shocking courtroom claims, the proof that supports them, the strange timing of Clive's pre-Grammy party, and why Kanye believes Clive is the real puppet master behind the music business's darkest secrets. It was full in the hall as Kanye West walked in, wearing a dull gray suit and shades and being surrounded by security. Cameras outside buzzed like hornets, trying to get a glimpse of him. He came here to testify against Sean Diddy Combs in a hearing that was already very public and full of gossip. No one was ready for the huge change Kanye would bring about, but everyone was looking forward to a show. The room went silent as he walked through the doors and took his seat. This witness was not just another one. Kanye West was there. He has a lot to say, maybe too much. He is one of the most controversial and important people in the music business. At first, his evidence fit with what was expected. Kanye began by talking about his early experiences with Diddy, including parties, projects they worked on together, and behavior he called deeply troubling. He talked about how Diddy used young artists for his own gain and hinted at secret meetings where people lost themselves. They already said things that would make headlines. But when the prosecution asked Kanye a simple question about whether he thought Diddy was working alone on these operations, the tone of his evidence changed drastically. Kanye took off his sunglasses and looked straight at the jury. "You want the truth?" he asked. "Then you need to know this ain't just about Diddy. It's bigger, much bigger. This goes back to Whitney Houston. This goes back to Clive Davis." The courtroom filled with gasps. Even the judge was shocked and sat back. Lawyers for both sides looked lost, and some looked scared. Kanye wasn't just giving evidence anymore. He was setting off a bomb. He looked across the courtroom and said, "You guys keep asking about Diddy like he's the best. He ain't. He's just a puppet. Clive Davis is the real puppet master." The crowd went wild. Diddy's lawyers raised a lot of concerns, but Kanye kept going, raising the volume and intensity of his voice. He brought up the 2012 Grammy weekend, Whitney Houston's shocking death, and the famous Clive Davis party that went on below her body while she was still alive. "You mean to tell me that after a man dies upstairs, you throw a party downstairs? That's not honor, that's ritual," the judge said. Security tried to move, but the judge told them to stop. "Let him finish," she told him. Kanye then talked about how he thought the music business was run like a secret service, with people making decisions about who lives and who dies. His story was that Whitney was about to reveal something much more serious. She knew too much. She was breaking out, and when you break out, they put you down, he said. It was cold in the hall. There were wide-eyed jurors, some leaning forward, and others who looked clearly shaken. Kanye turned what was meant to be a damning report on Diddy into a full-on attack on Clive Davis and a business that was said to be based on silence and sacrifice. Kanye wouldn't close the door after he opened it. He used his whole statement as an unplanned screed against Clive Davis, making scary connections between what he thought almost happened to him and what happened to Whitney Houston. Do you ever think about why all the legends die poor, sick, or alone? He asked the crowd. Because they were never in charge. They were being managed, pushed, and when they did something wrong, they were taken out of the picture. The prosecutor tried to change the subject to Diddy, but Kanye waved them off. I'll talk about Diddy, but first we need to talk about the man who taught him how to play the game, he said. He blamed Clive Davis for creating a setting where abuse and manipulation could thrive. Diddy didn't come up with this. He learned it from Clive and the system Clive built. Look at the pattern. Kanye then talked about what happened on February 11th, 2012. He told the jury that Whitney was found face down in a bathtub, that the rescuers got there too late, and that Clive Davis was still having a party on the floor below. That wasn't grief. That wasn't respect. That was arrogance. That was power on full display, he told me. He said Whitney had tried to tell other people. Kanye brought up the video that has gone viral of Whitney ending an interview 2 days before she died, speaking to Brandy and supposedly saying the word drowned. You think she didn't know? Kanye asked. He then said something even scarier. That was a cry for help, and nobody answered. Kanye says Whitney called a close friend or family member hours before she died and left a sad message. He says that this call was erased from her phone. You don't just erase a call unless it says something they don't want anyone to hear, Kanye said. In response to the question of who they were, Kanye said, the ones Clive works for, the ones who've been running this game since before most of you were born. Kanye ended his statement by saying that Diddy was guilty, but not by himself. Kanye said again, you're looking at a monster, but someone made him that way. He then said that Whitney Houston's death was part of a trend. He named people like Prince and Michael Jackson and said that they were also killed for power and money. They all tried to fight back. You think Prince wanted to die alone in a lift? You think Michael wanted to go out like that? Come on now, said he. Kanye said that Whitney was shut up because she wouldn't be quiet. He said, she had demons, yes, but she was trying to rise. She was making plans, reaching out to people, writing things down. She was going to talk. He then said that Clive Davis was in charge of keeping her catalog, image, and eventually her legacy. Kanye talked about how Whitney's posthumous albums sold like crazy and how Clive's net worth kept going up. She was worth more dead than alive, and they knew it, he stated. He talked about Whitney's daughter, Bobby Christina, who died in a very strange way. Same drugs, same bathtub, same silence, Kanye said, shaking his head. The audience was quiet. If that ain't a pattern, I don't know what is. It was said that one of the jurors had tears in their eyes. As Kanye left the stand, he said, you can call me crazy. You can say I'm reaching, but ask yourself this. How many coincidences make a conspiracy? The whole courtroom stood still as he left. The public was already talking about Kanye's words like wildfire, and Diddy just stared. Blankly, his lawyers looked shook. As Kanye West's evidence against Diddy went on, it suddenly and shockingly changed direction. Kanye quickly changed his mind about the web of abuse, control, and trafficking claims that he had been following. When everyone in the courtroom was quiet, he leaned into the microphone and said in a serious voice, and let's be honest, Diddy ain't the one pulling all the strings. This goes deeper, way deeper. I'm talking about Clive Davis. That name was like an explosion. The room was filled with gasps. Even Diddy, who had been moving around a lot during the hearing, stopped in his tracks and looked blankly at his lawyers. For a split second, the courtroom seemed to stop and be silent. Kanye then went on, this time with a stronger voice. He started to talk about what he called a dark pipeline in the music business, which Whitney Houston tried to get away from. Whitney knew, Kanye said. She tried to leave. She tried to talk, and you all know what happened next. He said that her sudden death, which was found face down in a bathtub just hours before Clive Davis's party at the same hotel, wasn't just sad, it was planned. Kanye then talked about the famous party before the Grammys and said it wasn't an honor, but a routine. Prosecutors looked at each other in shock. You think it was a coincidence that she died in that hotel and the party kept going? That's not grief. That's control. That's power. That's sending a message. Kanye hadn't told anyone about this, but he still had more to do. That party was just a cover. The real party was upstairs, where that woman was. They knew she was gone because they danced while she lay cold upstairs. Clive knew. Everyone knew, but no one said anything. Diddy looked scared, but not from Kanye's accusations against him. He was scared by the change in focus. Kanye was making it clear that he saw Clive Davis as the bigger fish behind the scenes. Defense lawyers tried to change the focus of the evidence from Kanye to Diddy, but the judge let him finish because what he said was linked to the main theme of the case, which was the culture of intimidation in the industry. Kanye looked across the courtroom and said, "You want to know why I don't end up like Michael Jackson or Whitney? Because I stopped playing their game." He paused and then said the scariest thing of the day. Clive Davis is not a mentor. He's an architect, and his blueprints are made of silence and bathtubs. After Kanye's shocking claim, the court played a series of documentary clips and eyewitness accounts about the night Whitney Houston died. The goal was to prove or disprove Kanye's claim that Whitney's death wasn't an accident. When security video showed a crazy set of events at the Beverly Hilton, the jury did not say a word. Whitney Houston's body was found by her maid at 3:30 p.m., and she was officially dead by 3:55 p.m. But it wasn't just the timing that stood out, it was the mood later. The pre-Grammy party for Clive Davis went on as planned just hours after Whitney Houston's death in the same hotel. Several people, including hotel staff and security, said that her body stayed in the room upstairs while famous people danced, posed for pictures, and drank champagne. Some people who were there said they didn't know she had died until the next morning. Some said they found out and were shocked that the party wasn't stopped. When asked who "them" was, Whitney's longtime friend told the court, she would have never wanted the show to go on. That wasn't her. That was them. When asked to explain, she said, "The people who made money off of her, whether she was alive or dead." The court then saw parts of the famous interview in which Whitney crashes Clive's media appearance with Brandy and Monica. People were shocked when they saw the video of Whitney giving Brandy a note and saying the word "drown" over and over again. One expert analyst told the jury that this kind of repeat in this setting could mean a warning or fear. He said, "She seemed to know." Kanye's earlier claims seemed less like a crazy explosion and more like a thread that tied everything together. This was especially true when Chaka Khan's old interviews were read out loud. In them, she called Clive's party complete insanity and said it felt more like a sacrifice than an honor. The subtext was dark. Whitney's death was known, expected, and in a troubling way, accepted, not with sadness but with joy. Because of health issues, Clive Davis refused to appear at the trial. However, that didn't stop the lawyers from focusing on the money and the way it looked. Whitney's record sales went through the roof after she died. New licensing deals were made, earnings started coming in, and the posthumous machine began to work. Clive Davis was the main person who benefited financially from this financial boom. The shock had worn off by now, but no one thought Kanye would go back to the stand for a second round of statements, this time with a plan. Kanye made his claims even stronger in what some people called a planned bomb drop. There was a huge uproar in the courtroom when it was said, Clive Davis didn't just pull the strings alone. He used Diddy. Diddy's lawyers yelled protests and asked for significance, but Kanye kept going. "If you don't believe me, ask Fahim Muhammad." The name Fahim Muhammad made people pay attention right away. Fahim was the security chief for both Michael Jackson and Diddy. In Lil Rod's civil suit, he was described as someone who could make people and problems disappear. Kanye said that Fahim wasn't just security. He was a handler who moved instantly from Jackson's circle to Diddy's. At that point, Kanye made his most damaging claim yet. I heard the tape of Michael's last phone call, and guess who he was trying to warn people about? Not Dr. Murray, not Sony, Clive Davis. The crowd gasped. Kanye said that Michael had become crazy in his last few weeks, and he had a good reason for it. He thought someone was watching, recording, and following him. "They're coming for me," Michael said, and he meant Clive by name, not in code or metaphor. The prosecutors then showed a video clip of Kanye from an old interview in which he said, "The people who made Michael disappear are the same ones trying to silence me." The courtroom became very interested in Kanye's story and the links between business leaders, handlers, and mysterious deaths started to seem less hypothetical and more sinister. Was it a plot or the last-ditch effort of an artist to get back to the truth? As Kanye West left the stand, that question was now with the jury. There were murmurs in the audience, but the defense wasn't done yet. They called a forensic psychiatrist to the stand to back up what he said. This psychiatrist had studied Whitney Houston's behavior in the last few weeks of her life. After reading hours of interviews, personal journals, and first-hand reports, the expert painted a very scary picture. The expert said she showed signs of extreme paranoia. She thought someone was watching her, that her phone was being tapped, that she was being followed. The prosecution then played a clip from a 2012 interview that no one had seen before. In it, Whitney said, "They want to silence me." When asked who they were, Whitney wouldn't say, but her eyes told the story. There was a fear that fame couldn't hide. Here comes the famous Brandy interview, which is shown again. 2 days before she died, Whitney left a mysterious note that was caught on camera. Fans thought about what that card said for years. Now, Kanye West said he talked to someone close to Brandy who told him Whitney had written, "Don't trust Clive, I need help." That note has never been found again, but the fact that she used the word drown several times at the same time hit West hard. The prosecutors came up with a time frame. Whitney was going to appear at Clive Davis's pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton on February 11th, 2012. She was found slumped over in her hotel bathroom hours before the event. While the rescuers worked upstairs, Clive's party was getting ready downstairs. There were cameras and drinks. People who were there remembered the strange contrast. A woman died on the floor above, while music played on the floor below. A number of people who work in the business were asked to testify privately. One insider said under oath, Whitney had been saying for months that she wanted out of contracts, out of deals, out of the machine. When asked what she was afraid would happen, the insider said she was afraid they'd do to her what they did to Michael. Then the news came out. A person who used to work for Clive Davis said that she overheard Davis and another boss getting angry on the phone the week before Whitney's death. She said that Clive told her, "If she won't play ball, she's a liability. That's not my problem anymore." It wasn't clear if the quote could be proven, but it hit the courtroom hard because of Kanye's claims. The jurors leaned in, and one woman put her hand over her mouth. He sat with his arms crossed and looked pale. Diddy was no longer angry. Now the most important thing was Kanye's claim that the Clive Davis party before the Grammys wasn't an honor, but a routine. The defense showed a clip of Chaka Khan from an interview she did in 2012. It was hard for her to remember, but she said, "I couldn't go. I was supposed to. I just couldn't get dressed. It felt wrong." She also said she didn't get how anyone could party while Whitney's body lay upstairs. Then there was a video montage of the party, which showed famous people laughing, dancing, and taking pictures while security watched over room 434, where Whitney's body stayed for 11 hours. Someone who used to work at the Beverly Hilton said in court that he saw music producers leave Whitney's room just hours before the party started. He said it seemed odd to him It was short, but there was a long quiet after he spoke. They didn't look shocked or sad. They looked calm, like it was handled. The next video showed Clive Davis being interviewed the day after Whitney died. When asked if he had thought about stopping the party, Clive said, "Never." The prosecution said this wasn't just heartless. It showed that he had planned to do it. In his final statement, the prosecutor asked, "Are you telling me that the man who found out about Whitney Houston couldn't cancel a party out of respect or grief?" Next came the financial records. Within 24 hours of Whitney's death, her records were back in the Billboard Top 10. Sales went up by 1,000%. Licenses went through the roof. The main people who will benefit from this are Sony Music and Clive Davis. Kanye's earlier words echoed through the courtroom. "You're worth more dead than alive, as long as they own your masters." The prosecution said that the industry, especially Davis, had a financial reason to make money off of Whitney's death. And when death becomes profit, motive starts to show. But the most upsetting thing in court was the spiritual aspect Kanye brought up, the idea of a routine. Pictures were shown from the party, which had red lighting, strange symbols on the decorations, and famous people all dressed in black. Unnamed source in the music business said that the party felt like a gathering rather than a celebration of life. He said, "I've been to every Clive Davis party for 15 years. That one was different." This made the judges wonder, was this really just a tribute to a dead hero? Or was it a masked celebration of a quiet sacrifice? The courtroom was never the same after the last day of the week. Kanye West was asked to make one last comment, which was not required by law, but was okay with the judge. "They also tried to shut me up," Kanye said in a steady voice. "Whitney, Michael, and Prince wanted to leave, but they were put down." He said the music business was run like a gang, with Clive Davis as the puppeteer and Diddy as the muscle. Kanye said, "Diddy didn't throw that party because he wanted to. He threw it because he had to. That's what happens when you make a deal with the devils for your soul." Kanye pointed to Fahim Muhammad again and said that he was the link between Michael Jackson's fall and Diddy's present scandal. How does a 20-year-old business graduate go from campus to guarding Michael Jackson and then Diddy? Either he's a genius or he's a ghost handler. But Kanye's most shocking statement came at the end of his speech. "I know y'all want to paint me as crazy. You did the same thing to Ye, to Michael, and to Whitney, but here's the difference. I'm still breathing, and I ain't gonna stop talking, because silence is how they win, and I'm not letting them win." The judge ended the case for the day, but the buzz didn't stop. A lot of reporters came down the hall. The judges left, looking very upset. Diddy's lawyers used to be calm and sure of themselves, but now they looked shaky and quick to respond. People in the news said it was the most shocking statement from a star in decades. It was also now clear that this wasn't just a hearing about Diddy. This was a modern-day trial about power, silence, and sacrifice in the entertainment industry. Kanye West stood up against all odds and pointed to Clive Davis, saying, "You may have taken them, but you won't take me." As the gavel fell, everyone had the same thought. What if he